About 6 months ago, I had a call with my marketing coach, and I was complaining about the lack of results that I was seeing. And she asked me about a bunch of my business stats, right? Like she's just trying to gather information, including my email open rates and my podcast downloads. So I'm going through the numbers, and she stops me cold. "Those are incredible," she said. "You know those are incredible, right?" And I was like, yeah, I know they're good, but blah, 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 blah. And she interrupted me again. And she said, "I don't think you're really taking it in, like believing that you are already helping people. You are already changing lives." She said, "Just for a second, imagine filling a stadium with those people that are reading your emails and listening to your podcast every month. That's like Beyonce level." And she's right. Was not feeling like Beyonce level confidence. And what had happened, what she was really pointing out to me, is that I had fallen victim to imposter syndrome. I was discounting what I had done, just not believing that it was good enough because I didn't have this other thing. And I bring all this up because I think that's one of the hallmarks about imposter syndrome is that for the most part, you don't know when you have it. Because you believe that the doubt you have about yourself is real and justified, you don't know that it's imposter syndrome. I mean, certainly some people do. But a lot of my clients, when I point out to them, like, "Hey, this is imposter syndrome," they're like, "No, this is totally justified." And so if you've ever said to yourself, "No, it really is me. Like, I really do suck in this one area," or just like, "I'm not good enough overall," if that's a refrain that feels familiar to you, then this is an episode for you. And I will say that I got the idea of sharing what I've done to address my own imposter syndrome since that marketing call, like back last, I don't know. Honestly, it's more than 6 months ago. It was probably last September. I want to share all the ideas that I have been using that have been really helpful for myself. But the impetus to share them right now is Rashma Sanjani's excellent commencement address at Smith College. So if you haven't watched that, you should Google it. It's available all over YouTube and TikTok. She really clearly covers the origins of imposter syndrome and why it's not our individual problem to solve, why it's caused by these larger systemic issues. But what she doesn't do, because she's making the point that it's a systemic set of beliefs that we're taught, she doesn't really break down how to help individuals that already have imposter syndrome to stop feeling its effects. And so that's what we're going to do today. So I want to start out by saying that imposter syndrome really is just a mental bad habit. It's the habit of attaching ideas about your worth to the normal human feelings of discomfort and anxiety and inadequacy, feelings of not belonging, being an outsider, nervousness. Okay? I'm going to repeat that because that is such a key thing to have sink in. Imposter syndrome is just a mental bad habit. Okay? It is not about you. It's about being taught the habit of attaching ideas about your worth to normal human feelings of discomfort. We've been told by society that if you are worried about feeling inadequate, then you should go get more skills. Okay, that's an indicator that there is something that, we should be working harder at or learning more about or achieving more, that it's a good thing because it's motivating. But I think your own experience, like if you check in with your own experience, like did it actually make a difference? Did imposter syndrome go away when you got your next achievement, when you got a promotion at work, or, anything that you were trying to get better at tennis or like whatever you felt inadequate around, like when you got better, like did imposter syndrome go away or did it just shift to another area? Okay, that's your cue that it's not really about it's not about going and getting skills, because then it just becomes an endless cycle of trying and achieving and still not feeling good enough, which that feeling like I'm not good enough is present in really almost every one of my clients. I'm trying to think if there's any client that I've worked with that doesn't have that at the base core of their issues, this feeling that they're just like not good enough. Okay? So if achievement doesn't work and trying harder and, like all the things that we do, getting a better haircut or learning a foreign language, like all the things we do to try to fit in doesn't work, what does? And to explain what does, I want to introduce the concept of nominalization. Okay, so you're going to have to stick with me for a moment because this concept runs underneath any bad habit that you're trying to change, any habit that you deem a bad habit. Even things like, overeating or not exercising or like any habit you're wanting to change, this nominalization runs underneath that habit. So I think it's worth learning, okay? Maybe it's just the way my brain works. See, I'm discounting my own ideas. I'm still working on my own imposter syndrome. Okay, nominalization is when you take a verb and turn it into a noun. And then my addition to the concept of nominalization is then we start to take that noun on as part of our identity. And I'm going to use smoking as an example because I think imposter syndrome is as damaging to us as smoking is. Okay? So smoking is a verb. And the person who does the verb of smoking is called a smoker. That's turning the verb into a noun. And that happens across all, like nominalization is just a thing that happens in the English language, okay? But what happens and where it becomes a problem for us is then if we do that verb enough times, we start to take that noun on as part of our identity, okay? If you do the verb of smoking enough times, you start to identify with the noun. You start to say, I am a smoker. And when you call yourself a smoker, when it becomes part of your identity, then it becomes harder to break because you've started thinking of the habit as just who I am. That's just how I am. I'm a people pleaser. It's just how I am. Okay? And what Rashma said in her speech so beautifully is the first step to breaking up with imposter syndrome is to believe a new truth. I'm paraphrasing her words. Imposter syndrome, so it's important to understand that imposter syndrome is not grounded in an actual deficiency in you. It's just not. And I would go so far as to propose a new definition of imposter syndrome, and that being the false belief that feelings of discomfort are caused by actual personal deficiency. Okay, that's what I would say imposter syndrome is. It's a false belief that normal human feelings of discomfort are caused by actual personal deficiency. And to believe that new truth, we're going to employ the strategy of reverse nominalization. Okay, we're going to take imposter syndrome out of our identity. So we're kind of taking that noun out of our identity and turning it back into a verb. Okay, remember, smoking is a verb, smoker is a noun. I am a smoker is part of our identity. So to break the habit of smoking, you would just say, like, you would say, I sometimes smoke, right? Even if you smoke 10 times a day, you're not smoking every minute of the day. And so when you say, I sometimes smoke, you're starting to identify with a person that sometimes doesn't smoke. Can you see how that makes the change just a little bit easier? Gives you a little bit of like mental breathing room between you and the habit. And we're going to do that exact thing with imposter syndrome. We're going to break the link that doubting yourself, second guessing yourself, has with your identity. Okay, has with how you see yourself as someone that has like deficiencies in these certain areas. So, like I said, repetition is what made doubting yourself a habit. You didn't come out of the womb doubting yourself. You did not have this habit as a baby. And so repetition is what will break the habit. It's what will start to build the new habit of feeling confident. Okay, that will make those feelings of confidence come more easily. So the first step in breaking any habit is to literally notice when you're doing it. Okay, you can't break a habit that you don't notice. Even breaking the habit of being on social media too much. Before you bring your conscious attention to noticing that you're on social media, sometimes you'll be like scrolling on Facebook and you think, how did I even get here? I was trying to check my bank statement. So you have to notice in those moments. And social media, it's pretty easy to notice, when you're on Facebook and not in your Chase account. But noticing where imposter syndrome can be a little bit more tricky. And that's where having a coach really helps. I have coached for over a decade and I still needed a coach to point out to me where I was doubting myself and not giving myself enough credit for what I'd accomplished. So, don't feel bad. You may have trouble noticing it in the moment. You just end up feeling crappy about a situation, and having a coach can help take you back to the specific moment when that crappy feeling occurred. Okay, because it's in those moments, choosing a new response in those moments, like having someone help you find those moments helps you get better at spotting it and get better at spotting the feeling that comes with it. That's your cue that it's happening. And then, the easier time you have spotting it, the earlier you can spot it, and it gets easier and easier and easier to change. And it's good to know that interrupting the pattern and choosing a new response is how you rewire the brain. Okay, the brain has neural connections that are like superhighways that are the patterns you've, felt over and over and over. If every time you talk to your boss, your brother, or a certain neighbor, you feel like crap, literally seeing that certain neighbor, your brain's like, oh, I know what's going to happen. And all of those neurotransmitters get ready to feel like crap. And every time that you choose a new response, notice when you're feeling that old response and choose a new response, you start to build like a new highway for your brain to go down. Okay, and that highway, the more times you take it, the more it's strengthened and the easier it is to go down. And you can literally see this in whatever brain technology, I don't know which machine it is that takes pictures of the inside of your brain and the neural activity, but you can literally see the physical changes that happen to people's brains when they, undergo different habit patterning. Okay? So, step 1, start noticing. I tell you all that because I want you to know that your brain literally changes, okay? One of the fascinating studies that has to do with that is if you use a new tool, like when we started using smartphones, they could see the rewiring changes in our brain. Like people that text all the time get more space in their brain that's related to their thumbs doing all this texting. Okay, and the same thing is happening with every pattern. And this happens every day, all day long, whether you're directing it or not. Our brain is strengthening some areas and pruning other areas that we don't use as much. That's called neuroplasticity. And what I'm teaching you today is how to self-direct that neuroplasticity in ways that help you. Okay, so you start noticing when you're feeling anxious or whatever your emotion is when you're feeling like an imposter, when you're doubting yourself. Then instead of going down that old default path of rewriting your email or obsessing over what you said to that person at a party or at the meeting or whatever. You say what you're feeling and then normalize the feeling. Okay, so you interrupt the pattern about ruminating about the meeting and say something like, feeling anxious is totally normal. Okay? Really is that simple. You take it back to the verb, and the verb is, I'm feeling anxious. And then you say, oof, I'm feeling anxious. That's okay. Everyone feels anxious sometimes. Okay, that breaks the link of connecting that feeling of anxiousness with the belief that you did something wrong. That feeling, I know it feels true because you're the one having the feeling and you think that feeling must be caused by your actions, but it's not true. It's caused by a mental bad habit. Everyone feels anxious sometimes, no matter what. And so you want to break the link of feeling anxious with the belief that you did something wrong. Okay? And people are like, oh, then I'll become a sociopath. No, you won't. There is a big gap between not obsessing about every word you say in a conversation, with your boss or your neighbor and becoming a sociopath. Okay? When you truly did something wrong, that feels different in your body. And again, this comes back to where having a coach can be so helpful because over and over, my clients have come to me, like a ways into the process and they're like, oh, I get what you mean. I can feel it now when, like, this is true of worry as well. I'm like, if your kids are doing something that you actually need to worry about, that feels different than that low hum of worry that's present right now. And the more we clean out that low hum, the more you can hear the call when it's something worth worrying about. And the same thing happens with this process. Okay? So you're feeling nervous and then you are going to normalize. It's normal to feel nervous. And sometimes I even picture where that's sitting in my body. Like I'll notice, oh, my heart's beating faster or there's a pit in my stomach. And again, just feeling that space in my body takes me out of my head a little bit. Or I'll talk to myself like I'm a puppy. I had a tennis coach. I took tennis lessons for a while and she talked to me basically like I was a dog during the whole tennis lesson and I loved it. She's like, oh, good girl, way to get that ball. And it was so effective. And so I kept that even after I stopped taking lessons. I would say like, you're okay, girl. You've got this. This is totally normal. I used to do this a lot when I was doing a lot of public speaking. I'd be like, it's totally normal. Everyone gets nervous before they, do public speaking. It's totally normal. You're fine. And what I was really doing is breaking the link between the verb of feeling nervous and the belief that it meant I wasn't prepared for the talk, which was absolutely never true. Okay? Taking that discomfort outside of myself. And I'm saying like everyone feels this way sometimes. This isn't particular to me. I don't have to make it mean anything about me. And interrupting that pattern enough times and going down a different path is how you form the new habit, the habit of believing in yourself. A habit of not replaying conversations over and over in your mind. Habit of speaking up. A habit of saying what you really think. A habit of being proud of yourself. A habit of being confident, of really believing that you belong in any room you're in. And the process really is as simple as that. It's simple, but it's not easy because you do have to put the work in of noticing when you're feeling that way and then consciously choosing not to believe that your feelings of discomfort are caused by something you've done wrong, by your deficiency. You just have to choose again and again and again to believe something new about yourself until that becomes the habit, the pattern, and I promise you it will. This is how you break any habit. And just like quitting smoking, you can quit doubting yourself and feel confidence and ease with yourself instead. And if I can help in any way, I would love to help you. Okay, there's so much freedom for you on the other side of this bad mental habit. Shoot me an email at allie@allieirwin.com or connect with me on Instagram at allie.p.irwin. Give these steps a try and then let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear.